Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rock and Roll podcast. Check out this record. My name is Frank, and with me is my good buddy, Mark.
Hey, Frank. And hello, dear listeners.
That was beautiful. You could find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcast, and you can see these mugs on YouTube.
But when does this wonderfully charming little podcast get released so you can hear it sizzle as we take it off the presses? Great question. Thanks for asking. Fortunately for you, we drop new episodes every Friday for your listening and fellas for your viewing pleasure. Oh, yeah.
So if you're hearing us for the first time, then you're probably not annoyed with us. Yay! So we review records. Yeah, give us time. We review records track by track, and we have a lot of musical discussions. We do spotlight episodes, which might even include some mysteries. And we've just scratched the surface, so we are just getting warmed up.
I wrote the word baby in there in the hopes that you would say, baby, we're just getting warmed up.
Baby, we're just getting warmed up, Mark.
Oh, that's what I like. Be sure to check out our verse series where we'll pit two bands against each other and make them duke it out for something we like to call total stereo domination.
Oh, man, that was good.
Thank you.
And if you need a drink of water after that, I totally get it.
It's empty. I forgot to fill it up. That's all right. We're doing it. If I get parched.
Be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook group. Hopefully these episodes will leave you wanting more of our musical goodness and Mark's random nonsense. Now, if you have a record you want us to check out, drop us a comment where you find us, like and subscribe. So I'm going to say this to you, Mark. Magnified Plaid?
Who?
Years 1998 to 2001 was a period in time where I personally think Magnified Plaid, i.e. MxPx, created their best work. So are you ready, Mark? I know you are, to talk about this long-standing and tenured pop punk band and tell the good people out there how you first found out about them.
I have no clue. It was probably a comp or a mix CD with like punk rock show on it or something, or Responsibility on it. Maybe. I don't know. I remember thinking they were, all right, before I caught wind of like the whole religious overtone things that were kind of all over the earlier stuff. But yeah, I have no idea where I found them, but I'm ready to get into the episode.
All right. Well, like always, Mark, we'll discuss how we got to this point right now. In short, MxPx goes back to 92, believe it or not, in Bremerton, Washington, where Mike Herrera, Yuri Rulli, and first guitar player Andy Husted were just 15 years young, which is crazy to think about. The name originally, Magnified Plaid, was on their posters, and it was abbreviated MP with the X's acting as the periods, and thus we have MxPx. The first record, Pokin' At Ya, came out in 94 on Tooth and Nail Records, hence the religious overtones. And in 95, Husted was replaced by Tom Wisniewski. And we have the second album, Teenage Politics, with that moderate hit Punk Rock Show, which is where we could have first came across them. And in 96, Life in General, with songs like Chick Magnet, Doing Time, Middle Name. Mark, were you at all a frequent listener to these records? If not, did you enjoy the hits? This really kind of helped, especially Life in General, helped gain the band momentum.
Yeah, so not really a fan of the early records, as I touched on. As for the hits, they're okay. Part of the problem is I don't care for Mike Herrera's singing style. It's very much on point with the style and the times.
Right.
It's just the style of singing I never really cared for, but girls were willing to go to these shows, so I went with them. So the occasional tune is cool with me, but more than a few in a row, and I'm over the band pretty sharply, pretty quick. So this was a tricky week for me listening to all of the records you had lined up for this one, bud.
I know it's a challenge, and that's why I threw it at you.
Hey.
So in 97, the band received a distribution deal with A&M Records and resulted in a joint release between Tooth and Nail, of the next record, 1998, Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo. The title derives by a letter a fan had written to them in reference to the band changing their ways. The band here was trying to go for a dirtier sound and didn't want the album to sound like it was produced in a lab. Now, Life in General, the previous record, is a favorite among the fan base, but I think this is a point where the band started to get going with my personal favorite tunes, hence why I started with this time period.
Mhm.
Mark, you put on Slowly Going Away the Buffalo. What are you thinking? What are you liking? What are you not liking? Give it to me.
Yeah. So Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo sounds like kind of perfect for pop punk of this time period. Musically, I like that it's got a bit more distortion, and you can hear a lot of that inspiration that the Descendants really had on them. The hooks are pretty clean and typically pretty catchy, but some of them can come across as corny, and they're though are the songs with lyric content based around the group's religious preferences that were a big part of their ability to work. Excuse me, it was a big part of their ability to catch an audience in the Christian punk slash rock scene. That I was not a part of, nor do I care for those songs in particular. We'll cover at least one of them if I remember correctly.
Correct.
You
Yes.
know, I do take issue anytime a style or genre of music starts with the word Christian. I always feel it's an unfair opportunity for them to hijack an entire genre of music instead of just playing gospel music, which is by all definitions what they are playing. They just happen to be playing a faster and louder version of that, which happens to sound a lot like something else. But you know what? That's up to them. I don't care that they bastardize it in the name of their false god. That's fine. Anyways, I'm just saying, don't sell me gospel dressed up as punk rock or metal. That's an absolute other joke in itself, or rap. I'll get off my soapbox now.
So let me add, as being someone who, if people are, hopefully they are listening from day zero with us. I have a complete 180 view with things on Mark, but I agree with him here. There's certain styles of music where particular messages, for particular messages, i.e., gospel, i.e., church music, right? I prefer mine to have universal messages, and I think you agree, Mark, right? To have appealed to everyone that goes
Mhm.
through life. The segmenting really, I think, alienates a crowd. And I know that they were
Yeah,
young at the time. I get it.
yeah,
But that includes those who are on the opposite of what or even Herrera was saying. It's something I'm not overly in love with because, you can make the argument that the other way of life is also a set of beliefs. Anytime the set of beliefs come into play, I'm just, a good songwriter, what they would do, Mark, is they create the imagery and leave it up to the listener for the interpretation, right?
yeah,
Which fits the mold of being more universal. And granted, I know they're young here. I know
yeah,
they're young here. But that's kind of my view. So believe it or not, very in sync with that because I think it should be universal, right? And we should interpret it as
yeah,
is. And if you want that music, which is cool, go to mass, go to church.
yeah.
So instead of going track by track, because we're handling kind of a lot of
A
records here,
lot.
a lot. Let's do something different. I'm gonna kind of pick some tracks that I
Mhm.
enjoyed throughout the time of me listening to these records, and let's get your thoughts. So, Mark, you ready?
Sure. Mhm.
Okay, cool. So the first track from Slowly Going Away the Buffalo, Under Lock and Key. I happen to like this as an opener. I think it's very rough sounding, although still young. I think Herrera's singing a little bit more forcefully here. Mark, did you like this as an opener, or should they have cut out this track list and maybe kept it under lock and key?
I like what you did there. It's punchy and aggressive right out of the gate. I like the energy, like really from the go. I really like this energy. That said, once we get into him actively singing on the chorus, his voice turns to nails on a chalkboard for me. Lyrically, it's a song you'd expect out of a teenager, and it works for the most part. I think it's a decent opener. Like I said, his voice has always been a problem with me, and when he's actively trying to sing, especially in these very early records, that he doesn't carry a tune that great. He's not great at those longer notes, and it just wears on me. But otherwise, I like the song.
Right, right. Um, Leads me into the next track too, which is
Mhm.
I know the one you were referencing earlier. Of course, Tomorrow's Another Day.
Is
Listen, at
it?
19, well, that's what they say.
Go ahead, I'm teasing.
I know. No, 1920, years old hearing this and hearing the I don't want to let my life fly by. I mean, that it hits you. It hits you. And I'm not, listen, it's not so lyrically profound as it is punk rock, but it's a super popular song among the fans. And Mark, do you think this is one song that people can find relation to with the Tomorrow's Another Day bit and I don't want to let my life fly by?
Yeah, it's definitely a little overly generic for the most part up until he tells you about God. In my opinion, I feel like there wasn't a lot of detail that sold you on why he wants to live another day or why there was another day. I like everything about the song except for the lyrics and their delivery. That said, I absolutely understand why people would connect with this song. It's got a killer tempo, a positive message for the most part. Or, I mean, not for the most part, it's got a positive message, right? And that's what most people are, certainly at the time we're looking for. I'm just not one of those people. It's kind of funny to me that that the song is about how tomorrow can be a better day, but he knows the person he's directing this song to isn't going to listen to him, and you can really feel that in that last few lines. I know that feeling, but I think for what he's going for, it kind of makes anything he had to say kind of mean nothing within the song. Just because, that last line is, I know that you're not listening. So it's like, well, what the fuck are you wasting your breath for? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's this opportunity that, like, for us to connect with him, only for him to say, well, I'm talking to somebody else who's not listening. And that doesn't work for me. I think it kind of flattens the message and the meaning of the song.
Right.
But again, this is way better than anything I would have written at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I'm almost 40 now, so through there it's still better.
Yeah, again, the context is that they were so young. I mean,
yeah, and I'm trying really hard to give them that benefit of the doubt as we go through this, folks. I'm not trying to make apologies for him. I'm gonna rip this as I would anybody else, but at the same time, I'm willing to acknowledge this dude was super young when he wrote this.
Yeah.
And it's impressive.
Absolutely. And the output too. I mean, just constantly writing songs,
Yeah.
writing songs. It is impressive. 3, the final slow dance. This is actually one of my favorites, and I personally feel it's underrated. It's super short. It's a basic pop punk love song, but I've always loved the second verses, how and the second chorus, how it got faster. Mark, do you feel that this is one of those stellar tunes from this album?
Nope.
Nope.
I really dislike this track. Once you get past that first voice, Mike's singing style, if we're gonna call it that, sounds like he's reading it in front of a class for the first time, a bit like the way I'm reading right now. No. Plus, I really hate that quote. Am I running out of time or am I at the starting line? It's just too cheesy for its own good. Then he finishes each choruses with the phrase, I'll tell you honestly, no one wants to spend eternity alone. That line bothers me because he's telling me, or whoever this song is for, how they want to spend eternity. And I'll tell you honestly, that's none of his fucking business.
Now, just to play devil's advocate on that.
Sure.
If this song, say, was based on a conversation and a relationship between two people, and they both kind of agreed on that statement, and then this is the way it came out, we could argue that this could go back to the fact that the age thing and maybe not knowing how to craft the song properly, right? Because that then kind of takes on a new meaning, and the age could be the thing here that we're experiencing, right?
Yeah, and I think yeah, absolutely. But I think that opening line, I'll tell you honestly, Mike does what a lot of liars do, which is profess how honest he's being. And I can't help but notice how often he's telling you that he's going to tell you the truth, or that he's being honest. And typically, what do we know about people who do that? It's that they don't. But again, this is a teenager.
Say that because okay.
Right. Well, they say that typically because they're lying.
Right.
But as a teenager, maybe he genuinely believed that. Maybe he did. But at the same time, and again, this is going to go back to what I feel are them pushing their beliefs on us. And it's a little bit more vague. I don't believe in eternity, right? What are we going to do for eternity?
Right.
There's not enough records for eternity. Well, maybe there's enough records for eternity.
Maybe,
but
there could be.
It's just a lot of jazz that we don't like. So I don't, you know what? It's one of those songs. I get why people are into it. Context, singing style, and delivery. I just can't get into it.
Right. No, I hear you. The fourth track is the single from the record, I'm Okay, You're Okay. I think this is the first song I may have caught wind of from them, to be honest with you. The single, And I say that right here. There you go. Actually, I think this is one of their better singles if you're going to stack it against the singles. But I
Okay.
could see how people could get tired of the course's repetition with the "I'm okay, you're okay" and all that stuff. Mark, what do you say here?
Yeah, I love the sound of this song. It's catchy and fun. That said, this song is about his insecurities while he's presumably on the road. I mean, I'm guessing here.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure as a young dude was tough, but the repetition can be wearing on the listener. Just don't listen to this song more than like twice in a row. Otherwise, I thought it was fine. And I agree with you. It's probably one of their better singles.
Right, better of the singles for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Track 5, "Cold and All Alone," another fast kind of signature sound. It was actually the opening song when I saw them live. Mark, after
Nice.
listening to this, are you revved up, or do you actually want to be cold and all alone?
I wouldn't say I'm revved up, but I'd prefer not to be cold and all alone. But since all teenage Mike Harris seems to be able to do is not understand people who are far away and act like a teenage boy about it, and I'm not thrilled about that, to be honest. But I'm always happy to be where you are, buddy.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, you're
Thanks.
welcome.
And I'm assuming musically you're okay with this song.
Yeah, it's kind of like I hate to say this, folks. It's kind of the same critique. Musically, these guys rule, right? They've got that sound, that pop punk
Mhm.
sound, really down. And even as we're moving on here, we get to the B sides, and we get a little bit more of kind of a hardcore, old school sound from them. They still do that really well. So it seems to me like they've kind of got two gears, but both of those gears are spot on as long as
Right.
he's not singing.
Now, though these were all in order of the record, the tracks I just mentioned, those were just my favorites I wanted to chat about and discuss with you. The rest of the album is a combination of lighthearted pop punk tunes such as "Party at My House," mixed with some serious at the time for their teenage years for songs like "For Always" and "Invitation to Understanding." There are some really faster tunes like "Fist First Tact" and "Inches from Life." Mark, I know you want to chat about the last track, the theme "Fiasco," but your thoughts real quick overall on the album, and how do you like it or not like listening to it in full, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think what's most important to understand is these dudes were just so super young when they
Babies.
put this together. And while the band's playing is typically up my alley, the collective age of the band really shows lyrically and vocally, which serves to pigeonhole the record to me as a record for teenage boys who aren't all that rebellious. But like to be a little bit preachy, which is most teenage boys. So the theme "Fiasco" is 100% the best song on this album for two reasons. One, zero vocals, which means zero lyrics. I love that. Two, it's clearly a tribute to the themes on the Descendants albums that came before it, and they do a great job of capturing that sound and experience and making it their own and exploring that sound. I don't mind the screaming at the end either. In fact, I wish they would have gone this way sonically as a band, and we could have seen more of it. We do get a couple glimpses as we progress through this, but I
Yeah.
really wish this had been a little bit more of a focus because the musicality of this band has always been there. They're great musicians.
Right.
I just think this dude writes like a fucking teenager, and
And
because he is.
right.
And I'm
Right.
sorry that I don't want to listen to teenage boys anymore. I'm almost 40.
And I just thought of something too. I stand corrected. When I saw them live, it wasn't "Cold and All Alone." That they went into that after they actually opened with theme "Fiasco." I remember that
Oh,
now.
cool.
Yeah,
Very
so it was
cool.
that. It was pretty cool, as you can imagine, and then they went right into "Cold and All Alone." Um, this album actually, believe it or not, I think it's the favorite from their catalog, and I say that just because they were able to, in context to them, mature after the previous three releases. There's a little bit of a darker tone, and you could hear some of that grit and dirt. Maybe listen, 16 tracks, but it is a punk record, right? And there are some tunes I can personally do without. However, I do think it holds up. And Mark also in uh, as we get past slowly going the way of the buffalo, we
Hmm.
get to 1998 now, and we get the B-sides record, "Let It Happen." I know it's a
Hmm.
lot of tracks, whew, a lot of tracks. But Mark,
Hmm.
what stood out to you here?
Holy crap, this thing is forever long. Mike, I'd rather spend eternity alone than listening to this thing cover to cover again.
It's long.
Speaking of covers, I didn't realize how many covers they do, kind of half-hearted, which is a bummer. It's a fucking ton, apparently, of kind of we're going to do a lot of covers that maybe don't necessarily work for them, because really they should have had two guitars for many of them, and probably, as you've heard me complain so far and will continue, should have had another singer.
I think on Let It Happen, there's some fun stuff, and you get covers like Sick Boy and O'Donna, really
Yeah.
young here when they're performing these. But I feel, my opinion, the
Mhm.
real meat and potatoes is the Small
Mm.
Town Minds EP, which contains the track Small Town Minds, First Class Mail. I think First Class Mail is a killer tune. Can't See Not Saying, GSF, which is Girls Schmerls fan club or something like that, which obviously
Oh.
shows their age, and Thoughts and Ideas, the song. So, Mark, your thoughts and ideas. Did you like these, or am I just kind of reveling in my 19, 20-year-old self here and clinging on to nostalgia?
I don't know that you're strictly sticking to nostalgia, because those songs in particular are pretty interesting choices. The Small Town Minds EP is kind of cool because musically it's a pretty straightforward, almost kind of hardcore punk rock
Right?
album,
Yeah.
EP. So hearing them really embrace that sound is kind of cool. Like I said, you get that two position. We can really see that they can drive in this gear really well. Uh, which I think his voice works actually kind of better for this style of singing, because it comes across a little less whiny.
Hmm.
The thematically, it's what right? GSF is a little more classic sounding MxPx, but with all that time to hear what he's saying, he does show his age again by telling us he's 19 and that girls aren't good anymore. Anyways, um he's part of
Yeah.
the He-Man Woman Haters Club, because you're 19 and you're supposed to, and kids suck at that age, and I'm
I mean, listen, being in that age, and I related
Mhm.
to the song at that age, and
Sure.
there was a girl who was completely shitty to me, and that's what you would think, right? You're like, this song does relate. Now, obviously, listen, he's
Yeah.
older, he's married, he's got kids, he's got a funny
Yeah.
story with being married too. On a side note, I think it's that because I'd listened to his podcast, and I think it was that his wife's favorite band was the Ataris, and
Mhm.
her boyfriend at the time was like, "Oh well, we for some reason can't go to their show in Texas, but do you want to go to MxPx?" And she's like, all right. And then she goes there and meets Mike. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, when you're 19 and like say a girl breaks your heart for what you would think a 19-year-old
Yeah.
to be, you're gonna be like,
Girls
I'm
aren't
gonna
good
join the
anymore. Yeah.
Girl Schmerls Club. Anyway, listen, in 99, we get At the Show, a live
Mhm.
record, which is not streaming, but I do own it on the old compact disc.
Ooh.
It's produced by our favorites,
Mhm.
Stephen Egerton and Bill Stevenson,
Of the
produced by them,
Descendants.
of the
Oh.
Descendants, and it features, I think, a pretty good mix of the songs. Some to note are two tracks from their first LP, song "Time Brings Change" and "Walking By," which are more updated, in a cover of the Ramones' "KKK Took My Baby Away." I actually think it's a fun record. Mark, anything to note here?
Yeah, I really like this record. Look, the band sounds really great and everything feels cranked up and over the top. I wish we could have seen, because this was recorded over 2 nights. I'd
Right.
love to know what were the breakdowns between the nights, but that's just me, like in a dream world, every live album is just one night and that's a real
Yeah.
experience, right?
Yeah,
But
totally.
I think this is, hey, two great nights that they were able to get together, sound really good. The production value here is good. The band sounds tight. It's fast. The vocals are a little distorted, so it doesn't bother me too much.
Right.
It was a fun time. My wife and I found this on YouTube
Yeah,
and
I
just kind of
know.
sat there and kind of enjoyed remembering what shows in 2001 or 2002 really felt like. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it does a great job of capturing that, definitely.
Yeah, maybe someday we'll get on Spotify so we could listen to it more, So we're now in the year 2000, and we have the major label backing of the band of A&M fully, and we get the Broken Bones EP and the studio album, of course, the Ever Passing Moment, which is actually coming up. Mark's ironically recovering this; it's coming up on his 21st birthday.
Oh.
The Broken Bones EP has 4 songs. It's not streaming. Also, it was only released on CD and vinyl. I like the EP because even though we have a major label record coming out very soon, these songs are quick and fast, and I think some of the bands again better work. I like the sing along aspect of the song "Broken Bones" and its catchiness, "Make Up Your Mind," and the fury of their song "Time and Season." Mark, are you feeling the same here with these songs? What's your thoughts on the Broken Bones EP?
Yeah, I hate to say this, but these feel like the same to me as the last EP. It's got a little more of that kind of classic pop punk feel, with some more hardcore influences to it. That single apart is probably one of the better bits of their catalog. I think that's a really fun song, and it's actually it's probably high on. If I were making you an MxPx tape,
Right.
That's probably the second or third track. So
Okay. Okay. Cool. So you found,
yeah.
one you like in there.
Mm-hmm.
So we get the ever passing moment. It gained lots of attention for the band. This is, of course, I saw them that same show. It was 2 weeks before the album came out, actually with the Hippos and
Oh.
Goatee Hook, which was a great show. So
Mm-hmm.
this record was produced by the late and great Jerry Finn, who also produced a slew of records, Mark, that we like. Dookie, Insomniac by Green Day, Dear You by Jawbreaker, and Out Come the Wolves by Rancid, Destruction by Definition by the Suicide Machines.
Hell yeah.
He's produced The Living End, Super Drag. Wait,
Nice.
his list keeps going, keeps going. I remember reading a piece in AP Magazine that this record, and Herrera says that he was listening to this year's Model by Costello for influence, which we'll get to soon. I think it was their attempt to kind of slow things down a little bit, because and we have some special appearances here by Dave Grohl and Stephen Egerton playing guitar on the track. Mark, before I highlight some here, what's your initial thoughts on them having this kind of I felt it was a bigger sound. Maybe that's just because of the A&M full backing. What do you think? What do you think, Mark?
Frank clearly just read that my first sentence was, "Is it a bigger sound?" It sounds more polished for sure, but not necessarily bigger to me. I think that sonically it's a bit more mature, but overall I wasn't terribly impressed.
So here's some of the highlights I picked out. We have My Life Story.
Sorry.
I think it's one of my favorite songs, and I think it's a good opener. It's a simple structure, simple lyrics, of course, about letting a close one down. I happen to get just some vibes here, little pieces of this year's Model. Mark, did you get any of that at all?
No, not at all. If anything, it feels a little bit like he's borrowing quite heavily from Social Distortion's Story of My Life.
Because you just turned their words around, really.
It's just kind of an awkward song to me. He opens by saying he's sorry and wouldn't lie, right? We've been down this road already, right, Frank? But then he goes on listing excuses like he's Jake Blues at the end of the Blues Brothers when Carrie Fisher has him at gunpoint, right? It's that same scene, except it's not funny here. It's comical, but when you add the kind of like self-pity lyrics to the song, the whole thing just it feels a bit too much for me.
Right.
And I always kind of resented that it was just Story of My Life rearranged. Especially after they did Sick Boy on the on the EP above, or previously, like, come on, dude, like, it was on the B-sides.
Right,
but
right.
like,
I gotcha.
How much are you gonna borrow?
Yeah.
Go on.
There you go. So we get the single from the album Responsibility.
What's that?
Yeah, exactly. What's that? When I hit my 19, 20-year-old self, it just hit me right in the jugular. Again, to parallel this with Costello's Radio, the intro, I kind of got like that little riff. They were kind of trying to do the same. I think it's a good like bubblegum pop punk song. Sure. I find enjoyment still listening to this. Mark, what say you?
I think it's one of the better songs of this period and probably of their catalog. It's got that classic sound and it captures that teenage angst very well. I also don't really hear Radio in the intro, but I definitely found some moments of it throughout the chorus. There's some like keyboard or organ in there that kind of does, like, you can tell that they were using similar chords and structures and things of that nature. Yeah. So it's definitely there. And I think Mike was doing a little bit in his vocal delivery to sound a little bit, to deliver the way Costello does on a song like Radio.
Right.
So I think it was great. Like I said,
it's a good single.
Yeah. I did have this earworm. I mentioned it to you while I was kind of really going through these. I feel like there's somebody else who's used that Responsibility. What's that?
Yeah.
And we kind of dug around and I couldn't find what it was. And it might have just been hearing a different version of this, maybe a live version that I liked better, but I just can't find it off the top of my head. They put out so many releases. It might just be a weird thing within my brain where, and if you've listened to the show long enough, nothing in my brain works right. So don't worry about it.
There you go. Another song that I always liked, and I think the reason why is because I got it like on an advance tape, right? So I used to listen to it a lot. It's 2 Whole Years. Mark, what do you think? Do you think it's an underrated pop punk tune or just like a throwaway song?
It's a bit of both for me, Frank. The harmonies here are really clean, and they do a great job with them. Lyrically, it's clear a teenager wrote them. They contradict a bit. He's just kind of a terrible person. And we've been too forgiving with him this far. Either way, it's not for me.
Without You is the next one. I bring that up because Stefan Egerton plays guitar on this, and I know he's
Mhm.
part of a band we so love. So, Mark, what do you think? Does he add his little flair to the song?
You really hear it in the intro for it and the outro mostly. You really get that kind of very like early period or later period Descendant style.
Totally.
The musicality of the band's really never been an issue for me. So it's cool that Stefan is doing a guest spot here, but it doesn't add a whole lot other than those kind of the beginning and end where you can really kind of distinguish that it's him. I could see why they would want to put him on this, very Descendant sounding song, which I'm sure, his guitar tone helped with a little bit.
Yes.
But since they've always come across as kind of wanting to be the Descendants' little brother, it's not really anything new or different. It just
Right.
kind of, like, oh, hey, and it would have been cool if it, I would have preferred to see them do a Bill Stevenson song or a Carl Alvarez song. Let one of them write you a really cool song and then put the music to it. And I think that would have been cooler than having Stefan Egerton. Not that he's a bad guitarist or not that he doesn't contribute beautifully. It just didn't add anything to me. Like it short of you telling me it, I hadn't noticed.
Well, he could have been on any other track on this album, right? And we would have been
Right.
like, oh, okay. An interesting track I always felt from them was the closer from the album was Misplaced Memories. I think it was different. I do think it's different, and it's mature from what they've done up until this point. Mark, what do you think here?
Yeah, musically it reminds me a little bit of the theme Fiasco, as they don't tie themselves to either the pop punk sound or the hardcore sound. This one is tough, right? Because I don't want to beat up a dude who, when he wrote the song when he was 20, right? That was like half his lifetime ago now. The
Yeah,
song has all the earmarks of being written by a teenage dude who isn't
right,
good at communicating yet,
right.
right?
It's like he's
If
just
you
learning
handed
how to, you know.
Yeah, if you handed me these lyrics and I'd want to talk to you about them, what you perceive to be the choices you can, could, or should make, and see if you still stand behind the words you wrote. That's the approach I would take, because this, I don't know if a 19-year-old or 20-year-old might got that, and it's kind of a bummer because I want to think of them as a better band, but what's on the record is what's on the record, and it's not great slash not good slash kind of terrible. And by not great, I mean I hope Mike is better at communicating his feelings and understanding that he's alone in his responsibilities for his actions.
Yeah,
This is one of those things, like if this poem fell out of one of your daughter's first boyfriend's backpacks, I'd
right,
throw the kid literally right out the door,
right,
because there's a problem with his understanding of choices.
right, right.
So, but
Yeah.
otherwise, it's a cool song.
Yeah, I mean, musically, it's kind of a little different.
Musically, it's cool.
And
You
you're
know,
right. You do take things way too seriously.
I do take things way too seriously. But like I said, I don't want to beat Mike up, because look, that was 20 years ago, right? And a lot of these songs
Yeah. Or that.
are that, right? They're coming from the mind of somebody who's 19 and 20
Time
years old.
capsules. It's a time
Oh,
capsule almost,
it
you know?
certainly is. I look, dude. God forbid anybody found one of my poetry books from when I was in poetry club in high school. Right? I'd either be shot or laughed at. So
Sure.
I get it. He's doing a great job, but at the same time,
Yeah.
the context of a lot of these songs, which I think a lot of people, he was able to get away with not being quite so responsible for his words, because
Well,
I think
that
I think a lot of people had written them off as either jokes or had seen like, oh, well, they're just this like Christian band. They won't say anything like terrifying. Um, you know,
I don't know. I think at some point the Christian thing has to be in the rearview mirror because there's nothing even on this record in
well, no,
reference to
yeah,
it.
but I'm talking
Yeah.
about the past they got in terms of people reading into it or worrying about the content of it
Yeah.
because they had that in their past.
Well, I think that's right. Yeah, I think it has to do with that,
Yeah.
the age, like you said, and
Yeah.
and kind of these things. You know, it's interesting too because, like you, Mark, I do like everything to be on a more serious nature, because that's like we're kind of like fun on the outside, but
I
inside.
say that, but I love Me First and the Gimme Gimmes.
Right, right. And my wife's been really helping me, being like, you know what, sometimes, Frank, you have to just listen to these things and enjoy them for what they
Yeah.
are. You could have your time for the serious nature, stuff, and sit in your corner and listen to your Tom Waits, but she's like, there's some good.
Sit in the corner and listen to your Tom Waits.
Man.
Oh, that's yeah. Hey, look, my wife does it to me too. I'm just not gonna out the bands. This is
Yeah, yeah.
it's fine.
I love Tom Waits, though. I really do.
Yeah, no, me too.
All right, Mark. So, anything else you want to highlight on this album? What do you think about it overall?
Yeah, the more polished sound doesn't really work against them at all. I wish they uh had more time between the albums to grow and work on songwriting. But that said, it's not a train wreck by any stretch of the imagination
Sure.
or anything. It's just very, it's like most of their records. It's just kind of a pinpoint right in time, like on the musical map of time. This is exactly where they were. This is exactly what pop punk sounded like. And this was, if you see the cover of this, without a doubt that it came from the year 2000.
Yeah. Good point you bring up on so many facets. You could really pinpoint the time if
Yeah.
music the way I think, at least to the extent that we do. Not saying we're encyclopedias, but if you've been around in our similar ages, you could really pinpoint this and be like, okay, that was late '90s, early 2000s for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, like, slowly, again, I'm 1920. This album, it gets into feels. It's that
Mhm.
pop punk that not everyone at the time. That not everyone knew at the time, because like Blink was so huge, right?
Right.
So you were more than okay claiming that you were an MXPX fan during this, when Blink was like exploding. They're still really young here, and this is when their exposure and their net even got wider. It's way more polished and slowly going away, and way more mainstream sounding for sure. You can tell their influences here, although they carry that trademark simplicity. I think they were able to give us some catchy numbers and some unexpected ones, like the last track. I wouldn't say this is like the Sistine Chapel by any means, but again, as I could hear my wife saying, it's not supposed to be. It's just kids in
Right.
their tender years enjoying themselves. So that is what it is. So, Mark, we get another EP in 2001. This time released on Fat, which is funny. Which
Mhm. It
is just
really
always
is.
it's just always funny to me.
Mhm.
The title is the Renaissance EP, and judging by the name, I'm sure it's them trying to go back, maybe a little harder and faster roots. Now, I feel the recording quality is pretty poor, if you ask me. It sounds muffled, but there's some cool tracks here. Letting Go, Time Will Tell, The Struggle, the poppy song The Opposite, and the sequel to Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo is Party, and the song's called Party 2. So, Mark,
Mm.
two questions. Did you like this
Uh-huh.
throwback? And do all your movies have the coolest parties, like the Cable Guys Say Anything, Some Kind of Wonderful, and Grease?
I do love a good movie party, like that rad party from Anchorman.
Yes.
Remember Cannibal? Sound quality aside, this may be one of the better releases for this time frame for me. I really like kind it's really weird. It's really kind of a weird that it really is kind of weird that it's on Fat. Jesus Christ, dude.
It is,
It's been
though.
a day. But it doesn't sound like the label had too much say in what they put out, at least from listening to the EP. It doesn't sound that way. I like that they've taken some chances here, stepping away from that sound everyone knows is a scary concept, but they really stretched themselves on a few of these tracks, and I think we're all better for it, or at least the band is. I would have. It would have been cool if this record quality had been better.
Right.
But I kind of dig it. Like, I kind of like that it sounds like they just recorded this fucking thing in their garage.
Yeah. 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 And Mark, with that, it completes our period piece, so to speak.
Oh, thank God.
What happens after this is more consistent releases. I think that's just the nature of the band. To sum it up, you get the next record, which is a super poppy major label backing, Before Everything and After, which falls short and in every aspect. As you could imagine, that came out in 2003. You get a return to form with Panic in 2005, which is actually on side one, Dummy, and then another B-sides record. You get three more studio albums, a cover record, acoustic versions, the re-recording of Life in General. To sum up my thoughts here, Mark, the
Please.
band, when I was 1920, they meant a lot to me. I grew out of them along the way, but I always kept my
Mhm.
eye on them for future releases. I enjoyed this time frame the most, right? As it captures the bridge between the band being very young and maybe the coming of age. Granted, after this period, it's comprised of middle of the road releases. However, one thing that can't be taken away is the band's ability to stay current and relevant to their fan base. This is the only thing the guys have ever known. They graduated high school and then they're in a band. Like that's it. That's all they've ever known, and they maintain their independence. So if you see them online, they're always doing something to deliver to the fans. While they may never reach that period, to me, of this time frame, I can respect the fact that they made it this far. Mark, your final thoughts before we play a little game.
Ooh, yeah, this has always been
Ooh.
a band I'm kind of conflicted about. If you guys haven't picked that up yet, um, my wife or Frank here can tell you that I tend to take things way too seriously.
What?
Which yeah, which is a wildly weird position to be in when you're listening to records written by teenagers. Okay, um, they still figure out the world. Or excuse me, they're still figuring out the world, and it's hard to suggest that they couldn't have known better because really they probably couldn't have known better. They were kids. So that said, I feel basically the same as when we started. There are some cool songs here. The band has really done some really interesting work. I admire their musicianship and wish we could have pulled off that sound when we were in a band. But it's such a part of them that it would have sounded like a hollow imitation, much like
Right.
their covers do. Um, but uh, but don't care and I still don't. I don't care for Mike Herrera's singing or his lyrics. I've tried listening to his podcast. I find him insanely annoying. But at the same time, you know what? The dude plays a hell of a bass. He's been around the world. He's had some great songs, some great times. You know what? They're a fun band. Don't let me not liking them stop you from checking them out because I do think anything from this time period is worth at least listening to because there's such an institution in the pop punk world.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. And Mark, let's kind of really then we could set the bar here. We're gonna do a little
Mhm.
game. So it's
Sure.
this kind of acts as our list. This game is called MXPX or, and we're gonna take a
Ooh.
look at 10 contemporaries or other pop punk bands, and we're
Uh-huh.
gonna see if both of us like them better. Now, to note, obviously, we're omitting things like or bands like Descendants, obviously, and Green Day. I think we're both fair to say we like both of those bands, right?
Yeah.
Better.
Better.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, cool. So, Mark, I'm going to say them, and then we're both going to say what our thoughts are. You ready?
Sure.
All right. So the first one is MXPX or Blink 182. Mark,
MXPX.
same here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Blink is a different kind of pop punk, right? It's a little bit more polished. It's a little bit more intentionally jokey. And while I may not
Yes.
care for Mike Herrera's kind of woe is me, I'm too good looking for my own good teenage boy bullshit, at least he was being I don't want to say that they weren't being genuine, but at least he was just writing from the heart, right? And
Right.
sometimes you look like a weirdo teenage boy, but you know what? At least you're being yourself, and I can respect that.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And in my world, I only think Blink has ever had two decent albums, with it being Dude Ranch and the one that got them big. And after that, I mean, I think they just rode the coattails of that, you know. So
All right.
next is MXPX or the Ataris.
Ooh.
And they're both friends. Chris Rowe from the Ataris and Mike Herrera are buddies.
Yeah. This is kind of a tie for me. I might lean a little heavier towards the Ataris just because I feel like the content is a little bit more mature. It speaks to me a little bit more in that kind of sense. But at the same time, I kind of like the sound of MXPX a
Yeah.
little better than I like the sound of the Atari. So it's kind of a tie for me.
Yeah. I think I'm not just agreeing. I think the same. The Ataris were eventually screwed by a major label, which kind of decimated the fan base a little bit. So you know, I think it's an unfortunate story, which we'll have to look into at some point. But yeah, I could take both bands and, you know, listen to them, and they're kind of on the same level.
Sure.
Next, Mark, is MXPX or Newfound Glory.
MXPX all day.
Yeah, same here. I never got listen to one of our previous episodes. It wasn't that long ago. I never got Newfound Glory, and
Yeah.
I still don't get Newfound Glory. Okay, next, MXPX or Face to Face.
Ooh, Face to Face, I think.
I'm with you
I,
on Face to Face.
I like the sound. I like the the vocal delivery,
Trevor's vocals.
Trevor's vocals, and again, content I connected to on a much more personal level, right? It felt more serious. And again,
Universal.
yeah, and it was one of those things. I think, if you look for the most part, Frank and I really come into our own in the late 90s, early 2000s musically,
Yeah.
where we're starting to understand what we like. I think for me, it was easier to gravitate towards a band like Face to Face that was more mature rather than a band like MxPx, where I felt like those are the kids in the grade underneath me. Why am I listening to their band? So
Yeah,
I think that's
Trevor
why.
Keith and Face to Face always looked like he was like 40, so
Yeah,
it's kind of like
that dude was born like 40
he
though.
was born.
He does have that look about him. Not, hey, look, nothing against him. He's a good looking dude.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But it's just one of those things I can't possibly, like, even when you watch videos of him younger, he just looks the same.
He always seemed mature, like kind of just
It's just a younger outfit.
Yeah, exactly.
Or he wore a lot of bowling shirts. Man,
he did.
I'm so sorry that was we both went through that, didn't we? The button ups.
Yeah.
Oh, I had some awful button ups.
Same here.
Yeah.
I still think he kind of looks like Michael Madsen
from Free Willy.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. I was gonna say Reservoir Dogs, but free
I know.
Willy,
I know. People like to forget that Michael Madsen was in Free Willy.
I know he was.
And I refuse to let the world.
All right, Mark. Next is MxPx or Sum 41.
I kind of liked that Sum 41 first album when it dropped. Fat Lip was kind of fun, right? It did a little bit of rap. They talked about like that it was okay to like metal
and rap.
But I think overall, I think I'd rather listen to MxPx. Like if we're going to a show, I'd rather go to see MxPx. Yeah.
Same here.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, MxPx or Good Charlotte?
MxPx, Frank. I never got into Good Charlotte. It's
same here.
It's when pop punk hit that overproduced sound. I feel like that's how you describe Good Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It never has pop punk sounded more like Cashing In than Good Charlotte.
Yeah. Lifestyles of Rich and the Famous. Yeah. Thank you.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Next is MxPx or Fall Out Boy.
Yep. MxPx.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you anything about Fall Out Boy. I know that they were popular. I know that girls like them.
My daughter likes them. Yeah.
I couldn't tell you anything about them.
MxPx it is.
Yeah.
MxPx or Saves the Day.
I'm gonna go MxPx again. Musically, I like what they were doing better. Saves the Day always felt a little whiny to me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I take MxPx too.
Mm-hmm.
MxPx or I know the answer to this one. Alkaline Trio.
Oh, Alkaline Trio all day,
all
day
long. Yeah.
Same it's one of those things. The only real way that this is even a competition is if we're talking like if we just line their last albums up and you go, all right, which one of their worst albums is better than the other one? Otherwise, I mean, like, you get that early, late 90s, early 2000 Alkaline Trio.
Oh, it's so good.
If you're talking 98 through 01, Alkaline Trio decimates them out of the water every time. Yeah. I don't know if it's sunk or just blown to smithereens, but.
And, it's pop in the sense where the music is popular, but I always felt like, Alkaline Trio really, I mean, it's punk, to me, it's punk, mixed with obviously the kind of the red, white and black flair of the Gothic stuff, but totally different ball game again. And we've referenced, I think, although it was a cash grab, Matt Skiba and Blink, So, yeah. All right. Last one, Mark, MxPx or Jawbreaker.
Ooh, great question. I think I'm probably going to lean closer to Jawbreaker just because I like the maturity of the songs. I really felt like I like that kind of that a little bit more of that post-punk sound as opposed to MxPx's pop punk sound and the maturity there. Again, if they were playing with each other, I wouldn't be disappointed. I'd stick around for the whole show. That'd be a fun show.
Yeah. I mean, I like Dear You. I mean, everyone likes Dear You, but I like the song Fireman a lot too. I think that was my first introduction into Jawbreaker.
Sure.
I get annoyed when I constantly get suggested Jets to Brazil though. That's just me. I'm like, what bands can you suggest? Jets to Brazil. I'm like, again. Maybe we have to revisit them. I'm not overly,
I'm with you. I feel like maybe we missed something, but
I'm feeling like I missed something.
We both called out as sick. We both called out of school sick on the Jets to Brazil day, and we just missed it. It's one of those, and I honestly can't tell you what it is about them I don't like. It just doesn't work.
Doesn't connect, right? It doesn't.
But
connect.
It's been so long since I've even tried that. Who knows? Maybe I'll like it now.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So, Mark, out of the 10, just so you know, we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times where we both selected MxPx over the band.
Nice.
2 where we selected the other band, and 1 tie. So, again, obviously you could stack up these bands and be like, oh, well, maybe there also some of them were kind of in that mediocre stance. But, I think I'm sorry, 3 times we picked the band over because Face to Face was the other one. But, obviously, then there are some bands that we do prefer MxPx over for sure.
Yeah.
Wow, what an episode, man. Ooh, I'm glad this is over. I hope everyone enjoyed these years in review style for the show. Mark, why don't you tell everybody what's next?
My pleasure, buddy. Next week, we're digging out our dancing shoes as we go to dive deep into Joe Jackson's 1979 release, Look Sharp.
Gotta look sharp. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about it in more detail. I own the vinyl. It's cool. So I'm stoked for it. So everyone, be sure to like, subscribe, suggest, review. Of course, thank you for listening, all, and stay safe.
Yeah, remember to be nice to Frank while you're yelling about what an idiot I am about MxPx.
Yeah, please.
And if you wouldn't mind, say it with me now. Oh my, oh hell yes. Oh bye bye.